now it's been almost 2 years that I'm working as a senior financial analyst at Amazon Web Services, which is AWS. And it's been an amazing journey so far, and I cannot wait for what unfolds for me
A
next.
basic layman term, if you could explain, what does financial analyst role looks like, and because there are so many students who have reached out to me who don't know what does the role look like, and this podcast could definitely help
Where I
them.
need to talk to a lot of people, talk to a lot of account managers, sales people, sales ops people, strategy people. Like, okay, what are their plans for the rest of the year? Because now I need to bridge things that, oh, you are saying 100, but you are saying 80. Where do we get those 10, 20 mil from, right? So that's what the financial analyst does. I got one of the best managers, and he was able to tell me that, nobody understands numbers more than you do. Nobody can do stuff on Excel, the Excel magic like you can. So you have to build scenarios, you have to take those to the sales leaders. And I usually interact with like the directors and the VPs at the company.
Hi, Ketki. Welcome to Narratives of Numbers. We are thrilled to have you in our podcast today. So, in today's podcast, we are going to, deep dive into Ketki's journey and understand how she has reached, a level of senior finance analyst at Amazon. So, Ketki, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Definitely. So hi, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It was really a pleasant surprise when I received your invite. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation today. Quickly about myself, my name is Ketki Oak. I'm originally from Mumbai, moved to States in 2020, so right in the middle of pandemic. Don't ask me what I was thinking, but that's the history now. I in India, I am a chartered accountant. I graduated in 2018. I started my first ever job at HDFC Bank as a fraud risk manager. So it was a very different profile, and we can talk about it more later, but very different from audit and taxation and costing. And I was doing something very, very different, but super interesting. In 2020, I moved to US for my master's in finance, completed that in December 21, and worked at a small consultancy firm right here in Chicago, focused in consulting. And when I knew it was time to change, time to move on, make that big jump, FANG companies, it's something that's always excited me. And Amazon just happened the right time, right place kind of a thing for me. And now it's been almost 2 years that I've working as a senior financial analyst at Amazon Web Services, which is AWS. And it's been an amazing journey so far, and I cannot wait for what unfolds for me next.
That is wonderful. First of all, many congratulations, Ketki, on your journey and for your accomplishment, because I know it takes a lot of courage, to come and do your master. So I know currently you're working as a senior finance analyst at AWS, which sounds so fascinating, and I'm sure a lot of folks want to reach there. So
Yep.
if in a basic layman term, if you could explain, what does financial analyst role looks like, and because there are so many students who have reached out to me who don't know what does the role look like, and this podcast could definitely help them.
Absolutely. And just before I start, I would like to tell and just give you that confidence you all is first month of my job at AWS, even I didn't know what my typical day was going to look like down the line. So just keep your eyes and ears open. It just unfolds really nicely for you. You're going to try to gather as many resources as you can, but actual job is where you learn what the job is expecting of you. So just don't worry, but happy to like deep dive into what my role exactly looks like. So one biggest chunk and the biggest part of my job is, of course, the financial planning. One big task that I do every single month and which goes on about for a week because I need to engage with a lot of stakeholders is forecasting and financial planning. What my business's rest of the year looks like. Are we going to make our numbers? What does my attainment look like? And there are a lot of factors that go into that, right? So then I need to be looking at what my top customers are, what their historical performance has been, what their bigger next step plans are. So that helps me map out what their revenue is going to look like, correct? So that's the biggest chunk of my day because that's where I need to talk to a lot of people, talk to a lot of account managers, sales people, sales ops people, strategy people. Like, okay, what are their plans for the rest of the year? Because now I need to bridge things that, oh, you are saying 100, but you are saying 80. Where do we get those 10, 20 mil from, right? So that's what the financial analyst does. I, at the beginning, was very, maybe I'll say, lesser confident in the fact that, a lot of people depend on financial analyst people like me, especially because I was, first of all, new to such a big organization. I was very new to the business as well. So AWS, whatever cloud journey looks like, maybe I'm very new to it. So my concern was that how am I going to help people, especially the people who have been here like 10 years, who know what the business looks like. But I got one of the best managers, and he was able to tell me that, nobody understands numbers more than you do. Nobody can do stuff on Excel, the Excel magic like you can. So you have to build scenarios, you have to take those to the sales leaders. And I usually interact with like the directors and the VPs at the company. So that's definitely nerve-wracking at this beginning. Definitely gets better on from there, especially when you know that you cannot make mistakes in what you're telling and people depend on the numbers that you submit. And currently I'm working on 3-year planning as well. So it's not just what 2024 looks like, but what next 3 years for my segment are going to look like. So again, looking at historicals, knowing what's out there in the market, what products are we selling, what's happening with the Gen AI, and stuff like that. So that's definitely the biggest chunk of my job. Next is the cost benefit, cost management analysis as well. So for every dollar of revenue we make, what's the cost that sits behind that as well? So there's a cost profit analysis as well. So where can we improve? Are we effectively running all our resources and stuff like that? So sales leadership is of course always interested in lowering their cost per unit. So that's where whole advisory committee comes in, and financial analyst definitely plays a big role in that. Next, I would say there is the reporting that that's of course a part of every job. That every month end, as and when you get the actuals and you have the actuals revenue sit in, you need to report on what happened, what worked, what did not work, what my rest of the year is going to look like, and stuff like that. So basically, building a lot of narratives. Like I even had a few narratives that have been read by Andy Jassy himself. So that was definitely like, am I doing this? That was definitely very exciting, but very stressful at the same time as well. So that's again a big part of the job. Again, it might sound very redundant that okay, commentary writing is like anybody's job, but what you do on an Excel file that needs to translate really well in a write-up that you do too, right? So what worked? People at the top care about their business. They want to know and see where we are headed, what's not working, so that they can make those executive decisions of what needs to change, what needs to keep happening, and stuff like that. So your commentary holds a lot of power. So don't underestimate yourselves. So that's definitely one of the biggest roles of my job as well. And then after that, there's a lot of ad hoc things that happen. So once in a while, I am spending time on some ad hoc analyses, right? Like, okay, Graviton. Like people out there would definitely know that that's one of the biggest products that AWS launches, and the versions of it every year, which is price effective. So as a finance person, now I need to know that, okay, when I say price effective, that means it's cheaper and faster, and it's definitely going to have impact on my revenue. How much is that going to be, and how are we going to cover up the gap there? So those kind of just one-time ad hoc analyses that I need to give to my salespeople so that they know where to go and sell. And then there are like smaller things like, oh, there are some billing issues or there's some accounting changes. So as a finance person, I'm expected to know a little bit of gap accounting as well. So as and when those rules change, my internal accounting changes. So then I need to keep up with those kind of changes and how is that impacting my daily revenue, and have those conversations, which often are very tough because direct impact on revenue is always a difficult conversation to have. So those kind of one-off things come up in a once in a while, but that I think I covered most of the things that a financial analyst typically does at his job.
Wow. So, Kate, I want to understand, you did mention that you have to do some kind of forecasting to support.
Yeah,
So I'm sure like there must be a lot of planning. Like you do it, for example, during the month end. So I'm sure like to back up that data, you must be spending a lot of time meeting folks, right? To gathering that information because so that the accuracy kind of plays a very important role. So can you walk us through like, how much time just takes you to gather all the information? Because I'm sure to build that is easy because you have a model there. You just have to run the formula. But there's a lot of work which goes behind just gathering those information.
happy to. So you correctly said it. So it is a very long process. It just does not happen overnight. Like if right now somebody asks me what the rest of the year looks like, I'm like, you need to give me at least 5, 7, 8 days to be able to give you a number. My process usually is because the numbers are heavily driven by how the customer is acting, and that narrative only salespeople hold, and they know what's happening at their end, right? Absolutely have no access to what customer is spending with us and what they're about to do, not to do, stuff like that. So I do spend a lot of time with the sales leaders, all of our top accounts, or as much as possible, I try to gather from them what their service mix looks like. What are they using more? EC2, S3, you must have heard of those things. Those kind of informations. Also, it took me a while to understand, but forecasting happens two ways, correct? So one is bottoms up, where I am now gathering all the information by customer, and I can just add up those numbers and give you a full number. But there's also a tops down guidance. So there's a number where my VP wants me to reach at. And that's where, again, the financial analyst plays a big role because now if there's a bridge, there's a gap, we need to find ways of how are we going to cover that.
Mhm.
And that's where all my interactions with strategy people come in that, okay, what new products are we going to be launching? Or where are we going to be selling more? What's happening? We need to know what my strategy for next 3, 6, 9 months, 3 years looks like even. So that's where a lot of those meetings come in. So you cannot be a shy person working as a financial analyst. You just need to open up. You need to get very creative, talk to as many as people as possible, just to get lot and lots of information. One important thing that I will add to that as well. So before Automanu, I was also handling games portfolio, where a lot of my information even came from the open domain, right? So just to be aware of, okay, what people are playing these days. Okay, this game is not working, or this is just through the roof because new launch came in 2 months ago. So information like that as well, or someone's acquiring something. So those information, that kind of information also helps a lot. So, like I said, you just need to keep your eyes and ears open. You need to interact a lot with a lot of people. You need to know your correct resources who can provide you all that information that then goes in an Excel file that you are just knee deep into and you know your numbers then. So, hope that was helpful.
Yeah, that was really well explained,
Yeah,
Ketki.
happy.
Yeah, so I also want to understand, like, you did mention about the second strategy, like, where you have to understand how to increase the revenue. So I'm sure, like, this must be more difficult one to do in comparison with the first strategy, which you talked about, because there's a lot of research which you have to do
Yeah.
to ensure, like, how the business is performing. So do you enjoy that part? Which part do you enjoy more?
I would say yes, I do enjoy because that's where I get to do unique and different things. And one thing that I definitely want to share, and which I can acknowledge that a lot of finance people must be feeling right now, is the fear of Gen AI, right? So the Excel part that I talked about, so Gen AI can do predictive analytics and can do modeling, correct? At some point, it still hasn't taken over. I definitely carry that fear that, okay, 5 years down the line, I'm going to be out of job because a machine can do a Excel model, correct? And that's where the whole strategy and the interpersonal human skills come in, correct? That I know how business is acting. Numbers can tell you some bits of it, but there needs to be some manual effort that needs to sit on the top of it. So those kind of things is what I'm enjoying or even trying to learn these days, is that, okay, that's where I can contribute. Like market trends, market studies, what I told you about. AI can just do an analysis for me, give me an output. but only a human can decide and know how do I imbibe that into a model to throw out a number for my business. So that's what I'm currently engaging myself in, just talking to a lot of people and understanding how do I bring value to the business apart from a lot of financial modeling or analytics that eventually machines can do. And I think at some scale they already are. So definitely enjoying and liking the process so far.
That's a very valid point, Ketki, which you mentioned, because right now I think everybody is talking about Gen AI and everybody's scared, like
Yeah.
somewhere, it's going to replace. But as you mentioned rightly, you have to see where you can create a difference.
Exactly. No, you said it perfectly. And I think that's where humans are non-replaceable, that models can do only so much, but there needs to be human intervention that can actually drive the output. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, Ketki. So we'll dive deep more about, the challenges which you are facing in your senior finance analyst role. So could you walk us through like, what are a specific, challenge, any specific example which you can, share with us, like which was nerve breaking and you're like, I don't know, how should I resolve that issue?
Okay. So very frankly, my day-to-day job does not throw so many curveballs at me. So it's not as challenging, but there are, of course, times of the month or the year where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. One, of course, biggest one is the data management, and I would love to talk about this more, is as a financial analyst, you need to deliver on accuracy. Like we just briefly talked about earlier, that even when I'm forecasting end of the month, it's not just a number that I give, right? So people are gonna look back and say that, oh, you said so much and so much happened. Why the gap and why were you not able to give us an accurate number? How are we gonna trust you going forward, correct? So accuracy definitely plays a very big role in everything that I do and say. And so that's where the data management and just being very correct in everything you do comes in. Of course, a few ways to do it is just being very attentive and knowing your data as well. So for me, I know what a typical month for me looks, right? So some things that way off, I know how to catch that and how to deep dive and drill into and who to go to fix that error or issue, whatever that might be in the data. Second is, of course, the peer feedbacks and peer reviews. So in first few months that I started working here, I of course had somebody review my work before I had to make any submissions and write-ups. That definitely helped because that's helped me identify where I went wrong and what were the typical errors that I could easily avoid in the future. So peer feedback, manager feedback, reviews definitely help. So that's one way of doing things. And third, I would say it's not a method, but it's just training your mind that your short write-up or your number is going to be sitting on in a deck which is going to be reviewed by VPs and senior management, and you don't want to be wrong in front of them. So whenever I'm in a room talking to a bunch of directors and a VP, I cannot fumble and say incorrect numbers. That's just not going to sit well. And in this day and age where layoffs are just left and right, I can be a redundant resource overnight, right? So just training your mind to say correct things, and that I think comes from just being dedicated to the job that you do. When I know that I haven't done things lightly, I know my numbers better than anybody else, is what even brings that confidence out, right? That ask me anything left and right, my entire customer set, my portfolio, my business, I'm going to know it all. So that's what just helps in building the confidence. So that's definitely what I practice and I, of course, love. And so those, I think, I would say are the challenges. Yeah, that would be all.
So I want to understand, like being a senior finance analyst, you carry a huge responsibility on your shoulder that you cannot give wrong information because based on your data,
Yeah,
there's a lot happening in the business. So you're driving business, I would say, correctly.
yep,
So
exactly.
has it ever happened in any meeting you said something wrong and then later you're like, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that.
No, so fortunately, knock on the wood, it hasn't happened so yet. There are often times when we get asked questions, so we don't have numbers top of our head, maybe. So or because somebody suddenly wants to do a different metric that we haven't even looked at yet. It can definitely happen. So that's where you just politely walk in and be like, sorry, I don't have it handy. I can just take it offline, connect with you later. But then as soon as the meeting's done, you get on the top of it, you respond back to the VP because again, a lot of decisions are made and based on the data that you give and the information that you provide. So yeah, it's possible. We are all humans. But then again, once that happens, because my habit is also that whenever such instances do happen, that my answers are maybe not ready and I had to go back, revisit, and come back. I do keep a list ready that, okay, here are the things that my VP usually loves to look at. And I should definitely have it handy always next time when I'm walking in a meeting with him. So just practices like that definitely help in small ways.
Nice. So, Ketki, so has
Yeah.
it ever happened that you forecasted it's going to be 100K revenue, but the actual was below or maybe above, and then you had to explain that discrepancy? So, can you walk us through any example,
Oh, for sure. That's that's always a fun part of my job every single month. Definitely there are gaps. And it's nothing to do with how your financial modeling or mathematics looks like, but it's a lot driven by outside factors, right? So however I said earlier that, there are multiple things that influence the numbers that you actually materialize every month. Some factors are unknown. Um, Somebody acquired somebody outside middle of the month, whatever estimated data I had just goes down south. I could not have planned for it because usually, of course, while in the middle of the month, I have the estimated data for the month as well, right? So that's definitely a starting point that I have. But again, that is only ML driven because ML is now looking at what my 7 days of billing looks like and what the rest of the month is going to look like. So it's literally doing 7 into 4 and giving me a 30-day revenue.
Mhm.
So I need to like bake a lot of things on the top of it. Even if one of those goes wrong, one of those nobody knew of, things are going to be way off. So one tiny example I'll give is the accounting principles that I talked about. Things are changing overnight every single day. And at the scale of Amazon, of course, there are a lot of things that happen. Sometimes some people don't know about. So often I have to explain in the following month why my number was off was because an accounting policy changed or the accounting rule changed. So now how we recognize revenue has changed. And it has nothing to do with customer behavior or market analysis or historical behavior. Those are all factors that people usually look into. But there's some one-off thing that somebody decided to change over month. And I think those are the challenges that come with the scale of the company that you work at, even, right? And again, those are amendable, those are changeable. You can work on those. Now I know exactly what's been happening. First time that I moved into this sector as well, it was very new. I did not know anything about auto manufacturing business. So I actually had to sit down into training sessions as well with as many people as I could to just understand what auto manufacturing even is. So lot of things happen beyond human control as well. But as and when you learn those, you know how to include and inculcate those in your actual real numbers as well, so that it's not a waterfall of mistakes. You just keep amending a lot of things, but there's something new awaiting in the next month, and you just navigate around it.
Nice. So I'm sure during your this process, you eventually get to know that what will be the gaps, and you know, like,
Yeah.
okay, I have to next time I got to be more careful about those areas.
Absolutely. Because again, from very career standpoint as well, accuracy is one of the things that I'm measured against as well, right? So very personally, I would want to deliver and be super accurate and be very efficient with the numbers that I am calling out to. So what more can I do? So we even regroup as like just finance people in our company that, okay, my number was pretty solid last month, but yours was pretty off. What went wrong for you? So I'm not just now looking at my mistakes or my gaps, but also at organization level, what can we do better to drive a better overall forecast number too? So uh, it's a collective project for sure.
Yep, absolutely. And I think you have already talked about data a lot, but So is there any specific thing you do to ensure that data is accurate? Because accuracy, as you've been pointing out, that plays a very important role. How do you ensure that your data is accurate before you pass on that information to stakeholders?
I think that's exactly where my CA hat I put on and start looking at numbers with a different angle. Like I said, when you know your business, you know what numbers you're looking at. So you have a fair estimate. So suddenly, if I notice that these numbers look very inflated, I know something's wrong and I need to deep dive and drill into it. So one is, of course, just being very attentive, knowing your business really well. So that helps and definitely contributes to the validation part a lot. And second part, like I said, my CA cap, right? So just the auditing angle of things, like just looking at things in at two different vantage points, where you know that okay, A plus B is equal to C is what I got, but then C minus A could be B as well, right? So now I have my own checkpoints or just auditing techniques that we have used back in the day to be sure that okay, here's the story that I'm telling. If I tell it this way, I get the same number. Cool. Now I have checked it myself twice. And then later I can just have my peer review it, my manager review it. Of course, as we go up the ladder, that's not going to happen often. Like I am already just a senior financial analyst, but my manager is super hands off. He like trusts my number and he's like, you handle it. He has more bigger problems to go and solve and fight for. So I trust him. And the only way to build that trust is that he has seen my work for so long now and he knows whatever I'm talking, whatever I'm submitting is good. So that only happens over time, but the process that you follow is, like I said, just be very attentive, know your business, know your things, just don't lose control over things that you're doing because you own your narrative. So your lack of confidence shows in your numbers, right? Whenever you're just trying to jumble up and just put some math together on an Excel because you had to walk into a meeting, that speaks. And people can tell that no, you're just making this up. You have not studied or you're not done anything on this Excel file really. So you don't want that to ever happen to you. So
Very valid point, Ketki. Like, as I myself apply that a lot, like detail oriented, like attention to detail, because these are numbers. Like instead of 2 digit, if you miss 1 digit, that can make like data look absolutely wrong, right? So attention to detail plays a very important role. And you mentioned like you need to know your business well. And since you're from the audit background, so you always look like suspicious about your own work. And like could you explain education and skill set one needs to have if they're looking to apply for senior finance analyst role?
absolutely. So the job that I am at is a L5 senior financial analyst at Amazon. So the typical job description or the job requirement for this role is bachelor's plus X number of years in experience, or it's master's degree plus Y number of years in experience. Of course, your degree can be master's in finance or even bachelor's in finance or accounting. There are a few subdivisions that one can explore with like financial analytics, financial mathematics. One thing that I, of course, knew while I was even studying but looking for jobs, because looking for jobs is, of course, a very lengthy process. One thing I noticed is a lot of jobs these days ask for you to know, if not just completely operate, but at least to know and navigate across um, the visualization tools like, say, Power BI or Tableau or QuickSight. So what I did really consciously while I was doing my master's itself was one of the courses I took was data visualization. So that was not part of my 32 credits that my course expected of me. I did that as an additional 3 credit hour thing just to be able to get official certification or just official degree in visualization as well. So definitely explore. So while you're studying or even all the way back while you're preparing your uh, journey towards MS itself, just look at a lot of job descriptions, especially at least like top 20, 30 companies that you wish to work for. I know things can go differently, but at least in your research, know what a company is looking for, number of experience wise as well. So a lot of people even today as CAs from India reach out to me and be like, oh, we are exploring doing masters and then applying. We absolutely love what you do. What should I be doing? I'm like, just stay back, be patient, gather at least 2 years of experience in India itself, learn some basics. Like, and basics could be as easy as learning how to operate an Outlook, right? Like, never in our personal life we know how to send an email, for God's sake. So even that's a learning curve that you need to go through. And in the US, when itself there are 100 things that you're doing for the first time, graduating fresh out of the college with no experience at all, I personally would not recommend going that way. So just get those couple of years of experience back home while you are preparing towards coming here in the US as well. So yeah, so by degree, I think I would recommend, of course, bachelor's or master's in finance, explore analytics, explore financial mathematics as well. There are degrees in accounting, so there are masters in accounting, bachelor's accounting, both here too. Of course, a lot of people on my team right now are also CPAs, so they did bachelor's in accounting with majors in accounting, plus a CPA degree as well. So that's definitely one option to explore, and before you get on this job application journey. So hope that's helpful.
Yeah, so what I understand is like someone has a bachelor degree, but they do have like really good number of work experience, then they still eligible to apply for this role. So this is like a really good information for folks who thinks that they need to have masters or CPA degree. That's not important, but like in case if you have less work experience and you have those credential, then as it is you stand out there.
Exactly. No, absolutely. And that's one thing that was surprising to me as well, right? Because in India, the way you apply for jobs is that you have a degree and you walk into the office and they need some X years of experience. And that's all I knew about. Here is the first time that I'm seeing it's going to be a combination of that you could be a bachelor's graduate as well, but if you have like 10 years of experience, it's going to be easy for you to get into the gate. But if you have masters, a little lesser experience can help you too. So that was definitely one new thing that I learned. There are, of course, bunch of more things that follow when you have to get into the whole corporate America world. But there are like bunch of like online resources that you can explore. I would definitely recommend that networking is the key. I was definitely a shy person that no, when it comes to applying to jobs, I'm going to reach out to recruiters or just apply and get going. But no, it doesn't always just have to be recruiters. You need to connect with the people in the business. You need to be looking at the specific companies. And just connecting with a lot of people who already work there just to talk to them and understand what their typical day looks like, what they do, what their educational background is. um, Even in your job application journey, one thing that I would definitely recommend is people usually tend to just jump at applications, right? They have one resume ready and they are applying to like 200 jobs a day, and it's such a tiring process. Nothing comes out of it, or just hardly even after 200 applications, 4 or 5 interviews, that to recruiter level interviews, is that you get. And it is literally depressing. Like, there's that little sword hanging over your head when you know that you're about to graduate, your OPT is about to kick off, and you still don't have a job. And that's the worst phase to be in. So I would really recommend that, just take it slow, take it by a day. Um, Keep your resume ready, yes, but just tailor your resume to kinds of roles that you're applying to as well. So if you see a financial analyst role at Amazon versus at Google, their requirements are going to be slightly different.
Correct.
Very similar, but slightly different. So cater to your recruiters through your resume. Resume is like your sales document. You're basically selling yourself and telling people what you know. So use that one pager to tell people what you do and can do the best. Choose a day, just sit down and connect to as many people as you can from that single domain. Don't get distracted, don't get too comfortable. Just sticking to that one resume, like I said. So I know it's going to be a very hectic process. I know it's earth shattering. You just want to pack your bags and go back home. It gets very stressful. I absolutely understand and relate, but just take it by a day, um, and just decide what that path looks for you like. And yeah, everything just turns out perfectly. So, yeah.
I can't agree more with you, Ketki, because I have gone through that process, and
Yeah.
what you have said is very important, very valid point, especially I would say for international students that do a quality job application. Like you, each and every resume has to be tailor made based on the job description.
Exactly.
So make sure, like, you spend a quality time when you, because folks who are you where you're applying for job, they want to make sure that you are really interested, to be a part of this organization. So spend, like, even if you want to apply for 5 or 2 job a day, make sure you do a quality job application.
And one thing that I can guarantee people is that recruiters do take time to look at your resume. Especially in this country, recruiters are hired in such a way that they know about the role. There are separate tech recruiters, non-tech recruiters, finance recruiters. So they know what your day is going to look like, and if your require what if your resume even adds up and matches to what they are looking for. So don't take it lightly. I know there are a lot of automated systems that your resume even goes through. So I know that's a scary first step. But if a recruiter has your resume and if he or she is reading it, they are going to take it very seriously. They're going to very seriously spend 5-10 minutes of their time to go over your every single detail and give you a call back. So definitely it's worth spending that time to tailor your resume before you're even submitting to every job out there.
Ketki, you did talk about one course where you took an extra credit and that was not relevant for your master's degree. I wanted to understand more, little bit about that course, because the reason why, because it was something which kind of helped you in, in adding more skills to your plate. So can you talk a little bit more so that folks are aware which course it was and how that actually helped you in, like, in managing your work, in your day to day?
Absolutely. So I'll actually make that a twofold question. So as a financial analyst, I would like to talk about a few tools that I typically use. Of course, extensively, I use Excel every day. You will see at least a bunch of like 10 Excels open at every single time that I'm at my desk. Second is, of course, SQL, or any kind of like data pulling sort of a mechanism. Or like working at Amazon, it's kind of surprising that a lot of queries are even pre-built. I just need to get my access correct and I'm able to pull data very easily and very quickly as well. But SQL is definitely one of the skills that you need to have to be able to, again, tailor and cater to what your data requirement even is. So you should know your way around. And the third one that I noticed while applying and while researching to apply for a lot of jobs was visualization tools, right? So a lot of people these days do a lot of their reporting on things like Power BI, Tableau, QuickSight. We internally use QuickSight a lot because that's a Amazon product. And 2 years ago, like 3 years ago, while doing my master's, I of course didn't know about it. I had never used it back in the day. In India, I remember Tableau notion was that it's one of the most expensive visualization tools. Not everybody got a license, so that's what was sitting in my head. Of course, as a university student, you have access to a bunch of resources. So for almost 6 months, I had a free Tableau license. And like I said, I took those 3 credit hours to actually sit down, do my assignments and projects on Tableau as well. So that made me very well equipped to be able to navigate my way around Tableau. So I can build decent dashboards now. I don't have to build it as much in my current role, but I definitely need to consume a lot of Tableau dashboards. So a lot of my information and data comes from the dashboards, which I refer to almost every single day or single hour of every single day as well. So my strategy was that, there are of course free resources out there. You could do LinkedIn Learning and Coursera and like bunch of other training tools. I was already doing my master's. 3 extra credits hours was technically not going to cost me more. And it was again one of my opportunities to connect with my one more new professor, network with him, have his connections and everything. So it was an added personal benefit for me as well. And I'm like, okay, if I'm anyway doing a degree and this is gonna be an added feather to that, I'm just gonna be doing it right now. And that's how I even landed my first job that I did here, because that helped. That all they were looking for in a summer intern that they were hiring for is somebody who can build dashboards for them. So Power BI was my first job ever here as an intern. So that definitely was a great choice that I made back then. And when I graduated, I of course already had that certification, right? So in my degree itself, and it calls out what subjects I learned, one of on there was data visualization. So that definitely adds a lot of value that she has a degree in it. So definitely opens a lot of gates for you. So I would definitely recommend that don't just stick to what your coursework for your MS looks like. explore a lot of outside options. I understand and I also acknowledge and know that those 32 credits itself or X number of credits that you are applying for are difficult, are tough. There are a bunch of assignments that are due every week, every month, and it does take up a lot of time. And especially in your last semester, while you're applying for jobs and also studying and also doing assignments, it gets very, very difficult, especially here away from family, doing everything by yourself. So I absolutely want to be very, very respectful of that too. But still explore your options, whatever more that you can do out of the degree that you're already doing. Try to put all of those difficult things in the prior semesters, I would say. Like I kept myself to do only two courses in my last semester because I know that majority of time I'm going to be spending on job applications. So majority chunk of my coursework I also tried to finish in the first two semesters itself, when it's comparatively slower and comfortable and everything. So plan your coursework accordingly. Go out there, explore, talk to all of your professors, talk to your advisor, get yourself a mentor. That's definitely one thing that I want to highlight, that maybe mentorship is not as big of a concept back in India, or maybe MBAs know about it, but CAs as such, I didn't know about the concept of mentor back then. I myself definitely got one on campus. I have one at Amazon itself right now. She definitely guides me through navigating around things as well, right? So you don't have to talk work to them. You don't have to talk about your coursework in specific, but they can just help you navigate, explore options, going, talking to people, stuff like that. So mentorship is definitely one thing that you should explore and get yourself a mentor. That's one takeaway that I'll definitely, absolutely recommend for your sanity, I would say.
Awesome. Mentorship, audience, like I completely agree with you. Like back in India, nobody ever said that you need mentor, but after coming here, I can see there's so many folks who had helped me to navigate, as you mentioned about resume, networking, that those small tricks and who can tell you like this is the way you should look at certain things. And then you look back and you just change your style. So mentorship, it's really good. So
Mentor does not even have to teach you like technical things or even talk to you specifically about what you work or what you study, but just navigating through your life here, you need somebody to talk to. And of course, there are friends, there are family, there are seniors that you can connect with, but you need a formal resource that you can go talk to openly without any judgment. So get that one. Like one of the examples I remember working here at Amazon was, it was getting too hectic for me. I was managing two different segments at the same time, and it was just too much. And I don't know if it comes with culture or just my personality or my upbringing. I'm like, how am I going to say no to this? Like, I cannot say no to anybody at my job. Somebody's just going to fire me. That's always the fear, right? I just went to my mentor. I opened up. I talked about it. She told me polite ways to just like shut somebody down or just like not cater to everything that comes to your desk, and how to do it, how to handle it properly. So it could be problem as little as that, but a mentor definitely helps. So yeah, don't shy away from that either.
like, Keith, I wanted to understand, do you think for finance analyst role, do they need to do any other certification? Like right now you're in AWS. So do you think like there's anything which they need to do, like in case if they want to apply in AWS, there's any AWS certification which they need to do that can help them getting, at least shortlisted? Like, do you think that adds a value addition?
Absolutely. So, very frankly, I would say once you have the master's, that's literally all the education that you need to get into the doors for sure. But if you want to make your resume all shiny and bright and just to get more attention to it, there are a few things that you can try. So, like I already talked about the visualization tools. So, if you didn't formally learn it at your campus or during your coursework itself, there are a bunch of options that offer you the certification in SQL or in the visualization tools that I talked about, specifically Tableau, Power BI. So those you can definitely explore and have it ready for you. Specifically from AWS perspective, of course, when I joined, I didn't have the cloud practitioner's certificate, but along the way, I have definitely realized that more I know about the cloud, I can do better my job. So it doesn't just have to be about numbers, but I need to understand what our products are, what our services are. So I'm currently in that process where I'm getting certified to become a cloud professional as well. So that would definitely help. So I think that just generically answer that question, I would say the company you're applying for, to know their products better. If the company itself offers some kind of certifications, definitely explore those. Not from a financial analyst perspective, but there are different types of jobs that you can get into as well right after masters. So you can explore, and if you have time and resources and liking as well, you can get into being a CFA, CPA, like I said earlier. So you could be a master's and a CPA person as well. There's FRM too, so that's definitely one way to go. And yeah, I think world is endless. So there are a lot of options. So decide where you want to be, what company you want to be working at, or you want to do your own thing. You want to start your own auditing practice here, what resources that requires. But yeah, I think that would be all.
Yeah, I think there is no end to learning. That's the way I would put it. Like coming to your point, what you mentioned, it again depends where do you want to reach? What is your end goal? Whether you want to work with Google, Amazon, or you want to start your own practice.
Yeah,
What skill set is going to take you, to be what you want. So
exactly. And like literally that plus one only advice would be just don't get too comfortable. Like I've already said, finance profession is not replaceable, but just with the whole age of AI, don't get comfortable. Just keep thinking about how can you contribute better. How do you make yourself irreplaceable? And just keep exploring. Like right now, I'm on my journey to just see if I can ever be a program manager or a product manager and just like have complete ownership end to end of a thing that I'm owning, which in a way I am, right? Like with the whole forecasting process, I am the owner of it end to end. I know who to go to talk to, what Excel looks like, and what my end results look like. But how can I be more formally equipped to be a product manager or a program manager? So just keep exploring, keep inventing the cycle for yourself, and that's definitely going to help you progress towards your career goals.
that's a great point which you have mentioned, Ketki, exploring other options. As you mentioned, like if you know your business well, you
Yeah.
should know like in future, if I want to navigate to something else, you should
Mhm.
have those skill sets. You keep acquiring those skill sets that becomes more easy, that you make your own path, create your own path by learning those,
Yeah,
during your career phase.
absolutely.
So, Ketki, I want to understand how did you prepare for your job interview? I think this is the most important question of our podcast. If you can elaborate and share your experience.
Absolutely. So while I was preparing, first you need to know for any company that you apply to what their right from application until your selection, what their entire process looks like. So again, from my networking, and I was fortunate enough to have some bunch of friends working at Amazon itself, so they could really guide me through what the process looks like. So definitely be well equipped and be well knowledgeable with the process. So typically at Amazon, there are two phone screens, and this changes overnight. Okay, so don't quote me anywhere, but this is what my process looked like. So there were two phone screens and one loop round where five people from your extended team interview you same day, or it could be over the period of 2 days. Typically, financial analyst is a non-tech role, so I'm not like heavy coding, right? So I'm not a computer scientist or anything. So mine was a non-tech role, which I knew at Amazon. It's usually behavioral type of questions. So they ask about, tell us a time when there was a challenge you faced and how you overcame. That kind of questions are usually what our behavioral questions are like. There are, of course, a bunch of online resources that you can explore to derive what typical questions could look like. There are a lot of resources that will help you in pulling those kind of questions, those kind of behavioral questions. One thing I definitely did was made a list of all the experiences that I have had. And this is not just the job experience, so because those were just two for me, right? But every instance or every project that I've delivered on, or every little thing that I have done at my prior roles, I made a list of all of those things. Star format is what Amazon definitely relies on a lot. It's a good life practice in general, right? That situation, task, responsibility, action. You just to the point should be able to answer everything that you're talking so that you're not just all over the place, and the person listening to you has gotten the communication and just knows and understands what you're trying to tell. So definitely prepare all your answers. So the instances that I talked about, try to map it out by star, so that you're very to the point, very succinct, and you are just sending the message across really well. So that was definitely one thing. Um, Again, going back to the format, the first two phone screens that happen are typically with one of the peers on your prospective team and your hiring manager. So um, fortunately, or such a nice thing about Amazon is it also allows you to ask questions back to the interviewer, right? So that's again one of the things that people could take lightly, that, okay, I'm just going to talk about salary and what my work from office, work from home situation looks like. But no, that's really your chance to shine as well, because those questions that you ask really reflect how you think or how you're really wanting to contribute to the business and come to the company as well, right? So make the most of those. Just talk to the manager and understand what they are looking for as much as possible. Ask about what your typical day is going to look like, what skill sets are they expecting, what big, exciting current projects are they working on. So, whatever they're going to be comfortable sharing, they definitely will. So, again, the same message, but don't shy away from preparing for that section of the interview as well. And then back to the behavioral part. So have your stories really, really ready. Like I said, there are a bunch of online resources where you can go in and extract that list of 60, 70 questions. One thing that I'll recommend and that definitely helped me is doing a lot of mock interviews. And you don't have to pay for any service for this. You can literally sit your friend, family, relative, husband down and practice your interview questions with, so that the listener can actually pinpoint where you went or you derailed or you just went off from the topic which was not expected and stuff like that, because you know your things, and it's
Mhm.
not very wrong, but it's sometimes you're so personally attached to the story that you're telling that it's easy to get derailed. So it's a human tendency. You don't have to be hard on yourself. But just from an interview prep perspective, that's not a good thing. So definitely practice with somebody. Just look at yourself in the mirror and practice your questions out loud. And don't be scared. I think one thing that I definitely made a mistake with, and eventually learned through the process, was I was really scared. And you, of course, have this semi-imposter syndrome or just self-doubts that, oh, I'm going to be talking to somebody who works at Amazon for like 10 years. They're going to know so much more. But it's like, okay, in whatever your little world, you're a master of certain things. You don't have to be the master of all, but you know your things really well. This is your experience you're talking about. You're literally selling yourself as a professional on that call. So be very confident. Don't shy away from asking questions. Don't shy away from even like sipping on water in between your interview questions, too, right? You are a human being. Just don't forget you're a human talking to a human. So take those breaks as needed. Just breathe in, breathe out, and you should be fine. That's, you don't have to be scared at all. Like, people are here, they have taken out 1 hour of their busy schedules to talk to you. That means you're worth it. So just trust yourself and just jump right into it. You're gonna be super good.
Nice. Those are very important points. And I'm sure, like, our audience, would love all these tricks and trails. And I wanted to ask, like, I'm going to definitely deep dive more and ask you more questions, Katie. So you did talk about star method. So I think like Amazon has certain principles, right? Like, do you
Oh,
want to talk about those? Because do you
oh yeah.
think like they can, if you could advise, like they can go and download their certain principles and they have to make sure to prepare their behavioral questions based on that?
Mhm. So yeah, no, I cannot believe I forgot to mention that. But of course, Amazon is very heavy on their leadership principles. Even when I joined, so as an interviewee, when I was talking about those and when I joined, I'm like, oh, that's like just a general thing that every company loves to have, right? There's some always a motto, mission, vision, statements. It's very generic. It's okay. I can guarantee, warranty you that every single day at work, we talk about deep dives. We talk about insist on highest standards. We talk about having a backbone. So every leadership principle speaks for itself in our docs, in our narratives, in every single meeting. Because it was initially so weird for me that people actually talk like that. Like, oh, that you showed some really good have backbone there. And like, do you really say that? So it was weird. But now I definitely stand for it. So you said it exactly correctly, that when you're answering your questions, so make sure you're covering all of those LPs as well. Really try to imbibe those. And in general, like I keep telling my husband about this as well, that you know, it's not just that now LPs are a part of my 8 to 5, but I really absolutely love to include those in my personal life as well. Like something like ownership, bias for action. Like, why not? I want to own my single task. It could be as simple as going for grocery, but I'm going to do it end to end. And I know it sounds very mechanical and very machiney right now, but those LPs, Amazon absolutely leans on. um, it's definitely going to be a big part of your job. So from interview perspective, keep those in mind. Definitely have it like super handy. Read through it very properly. So you need to understand what that every single LP stands for, and include those in your answers. Include how you design your answers and experiences when you're talking to your interviewers, and that's definitely going to help a lot.
Okay. And Ketki, did you download those questions, the behavioral questions, like somewhere from the Amazon, or there's any other platform which you could, share with our audience, or that questions could be really handy for them to go and prepare?
Okay, so unfortunately, there is nothing in the open portal that you can just like go and download. I don't know what that entire list looks like. But fortunately, you could just literally just go to any search engine and you can just put in what Amazon interview questions. I'm sure there's going to be a typical list. I literally used the same bunch of questions as well, which got me through. So yeah, like there's no specific list that you'll be able to find in like one specific place. Of course, Amazon does not release that. But a lot of like online portals are going to help you with bunch of prospective questions for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like, how much time, Ketki, did it take for you? Like, for example, like, walk us through a time, like, where you took a ownership in specific project.
Okay.
So how much time one should spend like using star method? If you could just tell, like, whether they should stick for 5 minutes or 10, because sometimes, as you were mentioning, like you just get carried away and you
Yeah.
start talking about something so much that you just, you just forget what was the
Yeah.
intention of the interviewer, and you just get
Yeah.
distracted. So how would you, what would be your recommendation?
Yep, and actually that's where the whole prep part of it comes in. So your interview is gonna be only 1 hour or like even 50 minutes or so. But your preparation process is gonna last for about a month, I would say. I was definitely in preparation for a month. Like I said, I listed down all my experiences, all my project, everything. Literally, I had like a Excel file ready and I had 4 columns mapped against it, which was STAR. So every project or every instance that I wanted to talk about, I had it mapped out by STAR. So when the questions comes in, uh, you quickly think on your foot and you know which project are you going to talk about. Once you have revised and you're like ready, they give you a couple of minutes to just like gather everything that needs to go into that answer. So take your time, breathe, and literally like just say those 7 8 sentences, whatever that little story is. Of course there are going to be follow-up questions, and that's where you can get into talking about it in detail. So like it could be a XYZ project where you used Excel. I know you want to highlight your Excel skills, right, that I can do such great VBA kind of things or power pivots and whatnot. But that first time when you're talking in the STAR methodology, just getting across the message the first time is not the time that you want to expand and talk so much about Excel. It already sits on your resume. So it's at some degree, uh, it's already assumed that you know that you can operate on Excel, right? So very first, you don't have to go on and on about talking about your Excel skills or SQL skills. So just give them an opportunity to walk through your story. There, of course, going to be the follow-up questions, especially the hiring manager round. He's going to be a lot more interested in your actual skill set. So he might then just drill down into, oh, could you just then tell me how you build the model? And that's where you then go into talking at a stretch where you can actually explain to them, oh, here's the formula I used, or here's the Excel technique that I know of, or whatever. So you can just build on that. But allow them to ask you those specific questions before you kind of just start talking about a certain thing. but always stick to STAR methodology until the follow-up questions even begin. So in your prep work, you have to have your STAR all mapped out and ready to go.
Nice. And Ketki, like as you were mentioning, there'll be a lot of follow-up questions. So that's one thing I would recommend audience that make sure that those questions, what you are answering, that you should be really comfortable with, because it shouldn't be like you said something and when they're asking your follow-up question and you don't know how to reply. So make sure whatever story you have, you thorough about it so that anybody can drill you and you're able to give them what they want.
Yep, absolutely. And the experiences that I was talking about, those could literally be anything. Like I remember one of the stories that I had shared with the hiring manager was one of the tools that I implemented while I was doing my TA-ship at UIC, right? So there was one of the projects that my professor was running, and there was literally an Excel model that I built to be able to correct 50 assignments in less than 10 minutes. And that was such a big deal for me. I know for a fact that that still sits as an oak method at UIC in that specific course. I literally use that as a story because that highlights my Excel knowledge, that highlights that I can take ownership. I do have bias for action as well because I proposed the method and somebody accepted and then I built on it. So it definitely highlights a lot of things. And my manager absolutely still remembers what I talked about 2 years ago. And that could be it. That could be one of your stories. So you can talk about the um, like the NGO contributions that you have made, or the actual jobs, the TA-ship, the campus things that you have contributed to, a certain like college fest, like end to end. I can understand managing 100 people on campus is such a huge project, even if it wasn't in a corporate world, correct? So don't again shy away from highlighting your leadership skills, your interpersonal skills, your writing skills. Just freely talk about it. But again, just remember, stick to the STAR method so that you are not just all over the place in that interview, because it's definitely a formal setting. So you need to stick to some rules there. But yeah, you should be fine.
Awesome. This was a great piece of information. Where do you see yourself in 4 or 5 years?
Yeah. So one thing, very frankly, that I'm doing for myself is I do have nightmares when it's like AI is going to take over the world. So one thing that I'm consciously working on is understanding and learning as much as I can about the AI ML pieces of things. So of course, overnight, I'm not going to start coding and start building chat GPT, right? Of course, that's not going to happen. But how do I navigate around it? That, okay, Excels can be modified and automated, but the human intelligence part of it, how do I keep contributing to that? So that's something that I'm consciously leaning towards and learning. And of course, the AI ML bit that I talked about, that understanding what machines can even do, so that I exactly know what should I be coping up to and what should I be working towards. So that's definitely one thing. From career perspective, like I've said, being a financial analyst in some way or the other, I've of course been acting like a product manager or a program manager, right? So I definitely want to explore that as options as well. That formally, if there's like certifications that I'm exploring that I can do, that okay, formally I want to be a product manager. What do I need to do? So again, like I said, I don't want to settle for something that I'm already doing right now. So I don't want to make myself very comfortable. So I want to keep myself challenging myself every single day of how do I better myself, especially in this day and age where so much is expected of you. So that's definitely what I'm working towards, and that's definitely one thing I'll recommend everyone that's watching this to do as well. That don't get too comfortable. So what can you do better? What do you bring to the table that people want to work with you and only you? So keep challenging yourself every single day. Keep talking to people. Keep finding out what's happening out there. And that would be my message for everybody.
That's awesome. So like keep learning. That's the message I would give to all our audience, that explore, talk to people, learn. Those are very useful tips, Ketki. And again, thank you so much. It was wonderful chatting with you, and thank you for sharing all your valuable insight, experience. I'm sure audience are gonna love, and so many of them would reach out to you. So I'm sorry about that, but
No,
this was wonderful.
no, always happy to help and in any way that I can. So please reach out. Happy to do like a Zoom call, free chat, anything that you prefer. And thanks for having me over. Like it was a very pleasant surprise when you first reached out. And I'm happy that I'm connecting with one more chartered accountant. So that only
Yay.
often does not happen here in the US. So that's definitely a good thing that came out of this. So happy to have a friend. And again, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.